whatever. So just leave that off because you don't want fluff. Because if somebody's taking 20 seconds to look at your resume, you don't want the first thing for them to read is smoke, right? That you're just blowing smoke. The other issues is if you know, it could be nonsense. You're, you know, I want to work for a progressive company, blah blah, that's saving the world, and I can be enriched, and you know, they exist. You can Google it, and there's silly stuff that comes up. The other thing is, if it's too narrow, it can exclude you. If you say in your career objective, I am looking to become a tax accountant intern, and they don't have any tax accounting internship positions, but they do have accounting internship positions that you'd be more than happy to intern in, you'd be excluded because you're too narrowly. So generally, unless your whole life you wanted to work for whatever the case may be, Chick-fil-A, leave it off. Okay, list your experiences. Start with your most recent job and bring out, remember when we did that thing from the job descriptions, what they're looking for? That's where you bring out, you show, if you've done that in the past, you'll put that in the description when you work for that company. Let me see if I can find a real life example. Checking own work and task work completed by the design engineers prior to higher level review. So if I worked at a place that I did that, you know, I'd list the company, ABC Electrical Engineers, and then one of the things I would want to bring out as my experience is I've done that task before. Okay? So when you work a job, there's a lot of different things you do in a job. What you're looking to bring out in that resume are specifically the tasks you did in a previous job that match what the new employer is looking for. Page 11, don't worry whether or not your experiences are good enough. Employers are looking for folks that have done things. So it's always good to show what you've done. Don't worry so much about not having done enough. So for example, maybe you don't have a lot of experience as young people, but you work in the nursery at church, or you show animals in 4-H. That's all things that you've done. You didn't just sit in your basement and text each other, right? You actually did some things. Always start with an achievement or an accomplishment verb. Examples are accelerated, expanded, influenced, suggested, rescued, solved. So you want to start your experience statements with those kind of achievement words. And I'll give you examples of that. For functional resumes, so now we're going to talk about a different kind of resumes. You're going to talk about skills. Instead of experience, you're going to talk about the skills you have. So some examples listed there is self-motivated, proactively organized, volunteers to assist with distribution in a community food bank. So maybe this person hasn't had a lot of different jobs, but they can show functionally I'm self-motivated, and this is some of the experience I've had, some of the things I've done to demonstrate that. Bookkeeping, maintained accurate, detailed inventory reports at the school library, right? Maybe it wasn't a job, but they were working at the library doing it. List your activities. So that's the next section of the resume. In the pages that follow, we're going to see some examples. List your activities, and this is one of my favorite things on a resume, and a lot of people don't put it. They put their job experience, but not their activities. So, I have a story for you. Let me get some water. So when you go to a conference, there will be vendors at conferences pitching their wares, you know, like in the hallway when you're walking down the hallway. And what's very common is for these vendors to have some reason for you to stop. They'll have pinball machines, or sign up for a giveaway. They'll have some hook to get you to stop at their booth. So about a year ago, last April, one of the booths had a shoe shine. Big shoe shine chair. Have you guys seen shoe shine chairs in the airport or Cherry Creek Mall or something? So they brought in the big chair, and there was a shoe shine there. And it was free. So I hop in the chair. So now I'm in the chair so the vendor can talk to me, right? Brilliant idea. But the man shining my shoes owns a company called Vincent's Shoe Shine. He has a brick and mortar on 17th Street downtown. He works Cherry Creek. He's got a whole staff. Now, all work is honorable, but when we look at shoe shine and kind of the spectrum, is anybody aspiring to be a shoe shine? Not so much, right? That's, okay, clear. This guy has built a little shoe shine empire in Denver. He's a fine man, in my conversation with him, but he didn't appear to be very well educated. He was a shoe shine that grew a nice business. So anyways, I said, Vincent, I'm talking, and I was given this class at the Czech conference in June. I said, I'm giving these classes, and I explained what I was doing to this conference in the next couple months. What do you look for when you hire? Because he has a bunch of employees. And he said, I look for people that move me. And I thought, I certainly wouldn't say it that way with my MBA, but Vincent was right. We all look for folks that move us, right? So what I like about the activities section is you have an opportunity to list your activities to show that you're human, you connect with people. Does that make sense? So, when you're listing activities, think about what activities you want to list. Because you're going to do networking, we're going to talk about that in a couple of months. What activities do you want to list? And let me give you an example what that means. I'm an NRA member. I've been a shooting instructor in 4-H. I love to shoot. I was in the Marine Corps. So if I'm applying to like Tractor Supply or Murdoch's, that would be a good activity, right? Because there's a high likelihood that the person that's interviewing me either A, is a shooter themselves, or maybe they manage the shooting counter. If I'm applying to Douglas County High School or JP Morgan Chase, that may not be an activity to use Vincent's words, to move them, right? Does that make sense? So think about your activities. Use activities that move people. Homeschooling. If you're applying to Chick-fil-A, homeschooling is good, right? Where are some places that if you put homeschooling where it would not be so good? Maybe if, and I don't know, I should have thought about this ahead of time. Maybe if the hiring manager is a public school teacher, right? We've had neighbors that were public school teachers, and we were the devil incarnate, right? Because we didn't go to public school and all that. That wasn't a great example, but think about the activities.
I think that for a lot of companies, actually, because they've seen the track record of homeschoolers and they seem to be, at least on average, a little higher than regular high school, it's a pretty good thing to put on. But I'm sure there are a couple cases where you might not want to, but...
Well, what's 90, well, probably 105 times out of 100, what do people say? How do you socialize, right? So if you're applying for a customer service position and you list homeschooling, and the stereotype is we don't let you guys out of the closet ever.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you do?
Yeah. So the point is, use activities to connect with folks. All right, I think I beat that one good enough. List your education. And oftentimes with education, you'll see in the books it'll say, put your GPA on there. If your GPA is below 3.0, leave it off. You're not lying, you just didn't put it on there. And if you are homeschooled and your GPA, because generally we don't give grades in homeschool, is below 3.0, we got to talk here. Alright. List any awards you've won. Awards are important. You folks do a lot of different things, and awards aren't just easy. Ladies, I'm going to ask you to, you got to help me out. Nixie. Alright. Awards. Debate. The things you guys have done in debate. Things, we may not have 4-Hers, but in the different awards, they're a big deal. List your awards. It shows that you're not like all your peers.
I won a science fair.
Boom, right? That's a big deal. So list your awards. On the same topic as the activities, you can list your interests. You can do that on a resume. You can also do that in LinkedIn. Again, using Vincent's words, move the person you're talking to. Some things not to list on page 13. If you're into napping, watching reality TV, gossiping, leave those things off. 9, we're at the bottom of page 13. References. While you generally will not submit references with your resume, you should have them ready. Because that's normally the very next step is, can I have your references? So references. Never use someone as a reference unless you ask their permission. That's just polite. That's just polite. Good reference choices are former bosses, co-workers. Using the nursery example, if you volunteer in the nursery, a good reference would be like the head of the nursery. Bad references is mom and dad. Why is that? Because they have like no credibility, right? Everyone loves their kids, so it's kind of like a mechanic that likes using their hands. What parent doesn't think their kid is awesome?
What parent's not going to trump up their kids so they can get out of the basement?
Right. So you want credible things. And then keep your references up to date on your job search so they don't get called out of the blue. All right, page 14. Page 14. Here's a sample of a high school, a person in high school, their resume with no experience. So what are some of the things we see here? We see the header, right? That's very clear, easy to get a hold of them. They have their education listed at the top. They have their experience, childcare and pet sitting. They listed their achievements. They've listed their volunteer experience. Why is that important? Why is it important to list volunteer experience?
You're a good person.
Because you're a good person. You do stuff. Right. And then listed some interests and activities. Now, if Joe Go-Getter, we know he applied to Mr. Smith, right? Wasn't it Mr. Smith? If we know Mr. Smith was very involved in Girl Scouts, with his daughters, you think when he came across this resume that showed that, which is kind of odd that Joe Go-Getter was into Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
but that would be the Vincent move me, right? Okay. Going on the next page. Here's
Girl Scout cookies.
Here's another resume. At the top, this person listed a career objective. You know how we talked about that? A lot of the books show that. Listed education, work experience, So we see that he worked at Franklin's Lawn and Garden Services. He talks about some of the things he did there. And he also worked at Chuck Soda, volunteer, community, and interests and skills. So that's some examples of resumes. So what I want you to walk out of here with is when it comes time for you to do this, and you're going to do it 12 to 15 times, plus AAA, so really 13 to 16 times, you have the formula to bang this out, right? You have the cover letter where you just kind of plug and chug, and you have the concepts for the resume to just plug and chug. I feel like there was something I wanted to add to this. I think that's it. Okay?
Ask a question real quick. Is
Please.
it, like, on here, is it really important to put dates if you have the dates of when you worked for all these things, or not really?
You should, because one of the things that they're looking for is when you did it. You're not old enough, but if you were older, if you used